All right, Shalom. I want to begin this lesson by giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shah, Wahar Rakah Kwadash, which in the ancient Hebrew tongue would be the correct names of the Heavenly Father, His beloved Son, and the Holy Spirit. I also would like to give double honors to my teachers, the head apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Much due honors and respect to the sincere brethren out there that's also laboring in His work. And as always, want to say Shalom to the believers, the Akim as well as the Aqua, which will be you brothers along with the sisters that subscribe to this truth as well. So yeah, I want to entitle this sitting right here, O Zion, put on thy beautiful garments, all right, which is an excerpt found right here from the book of Isaiah, the 52nd chapter, in the first verse, which reads, Awake, awake, put on thy strength, O Zion, put on thy beautiful garments, O Jerusalem, the holy city, for henceforth there shall no more come into thee the uncircumcised and the unclean. Yet in this precept, when read without understanding, one would perceive to be literal, especially amongst certain Israelite groups, those amongst you who pride yourself on appearance. And once you confront it, you would lean to this precept, as a rebuttal. The scriptures tell you to put on thy beautiful garments. Well, this beautiful garment right here is actually a metaphor for this truth. All right, the proper knowledge, wisdom, and understanding of the scriptures. And why do the scriptures compare this truth to a garment? Well, a garment serves for a couple of purposes. For one, as a covering, all right, to cover your nakedness and your shame, which is pretty much going to translate to that hedge of protection in the day of evil. All right. Also, this garment symbolizes a uniform, if you will, means to distinguish you. When you consider, for an example, opposing armies, all right, at war, they're distinguished by their uniforms. Even when you consider in sports, the NBA, the NFL, where the two opposing teams is distinguished by their uniforms. And this truth is going to act as somewhat of a uniform to distinguish us from those who are going to be put to death, pretty much, who's going to receive the judgment of Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shah. There's a day reserved where the Lord is actually going to loose death angels, man. And if you're not covered, with this truth, then you're going to be put to death. So this truth act as a uniform, if you will, to distinguish those who are going to be delivered versus those who are going to be destroyed. Matter of fact, let's start off with that in the book of Ezekiel, the 9th chapter, and starting at the 4th verse. It says, And the Lord said unto him, Go through the midst of the city, through the midst of Jerusalem, and set a mark upon the foreheads of the men that sigh and that cry for all the abominations that be done in the midst thereof. So the Lord sent forth angels to mark the men that sigh and cry. And how do you sigh and cry? By speaking out against this system, against the so-called white man, against the wickedness that has exceedingly polluted the planet Earth. If you're not crying out, against the powers that be, right, that's in play, this current system, then certainly you're in harmony with it. That's why our Lord made the statement, he that is not with me is against me. See that? Verse 5, it says, And to the others he said in mine hearing, Go ye after him through the city, and smite, let not your eye spare, neither have ye pity. So you're going to have those who are going to be marked, right, or exempt from judgment. Then you're going to have those who the angels are commanded to go after and smite, and to not pity, man. Whether they're elderly, whether they're young, right? It says, slay utterly old and young, see, both maids and little children and women, but come not near any man upon whom is the mark, and begin at my sanctuary. Then they begin at the ancient men which were before the house. Now, when you click on this word mark, because the Lord gave explicit instructions, commands to these angels to not touch any man that had the mark, Yet they was commanded to slay utterly old, young, women, maids, little children, right? But they was commanded not to go near any man with that mark. Now, when you click on this word mark right here, And the Hebrew word that would be the wa, right? The wa. It says a mark as a sign of exemption from judgment. See, as a sign of exemption from judgment. Now, how are these angels going to be able to distinguish, if you will, those who are going to be judged versus those who are going to be exempt? By way of this mark. So pretty much this mark symbolizes a uniform, all right? And to further prove that, when you go down to the Strong's definitions, it says a mark, by implication, a signature, desire, mark. Now, when you click on this word signature, right? Let's see, let's get signature definition. Now, the first definition is a person's name written in a distinctive way as a form of identification. Obviously, all right, you write your signature on your check or what have you. But when you go down, one of the definitions for signature, which translates to the word mark that we just read in the book of Ezekiel, the 9th chapter, it says a distinctive pattern, which that word distinctive pretty much means to distinguish. See, a distinctive pattern, product, or characteristic. Yeah, you know, a uniform. You know, you have a uniform with a distinctive pattern, whether the pattern has the Chicago Bull logo. That's a distinctive pattern. See, that distinguishes you from the opposing team. See, a distinctive pattern, product, or characteristic by which someone or something, in this case, the elect, can be identified. See, can be identified. So the elect is going to be identified by that mark or that garment that's going to cover them. See, that hedge of protection. When those death angels are let loose, they're going to be able to distinguish, you know what? These men here, they have a mark of exemption, or they have those garments to cover them versus those who are naked, all right? And in most cases, they're going to have on a different uniform themselves. You know, if you subscribe to Islam, for an example, that's an actual uniform, man, you know? Or if you align yourself with the Moors or Christianity, man, which the majority of the people, including our people, mainly, you wear the uniform of Christianity. So when those death angels are loosed, they're going to be able to see the opposing forces or that opposing team, which again is going to be distinguished by the uniform you represent, which translates to whatever doctrine you might subscribe to. Matter of fact, let me grab another quick precept to support this before we move on, found right here in the book of Isaiah, the 30th chapter, and starting at the first verse. It says, woe to the rebellious children, saith the Lord, which is obviously concerning the 2/3, right? It says that take counsel, but not of me, and that cover with a covering, see? And that cover with a covering, or another uniform, but not of my spirit. Yeah, you cover with the uniform of Islam, all right? Or the covering of Africanism, man. You know, aligning yourself with being Kemet or more, okay, the Black consciousness community. See? And that very doctrine that you have covered yourself with is going to testify that you are of the opposing team. See? Again, it says, and that cover what they covering, but not of my spirit, that they may add sin to sin. So with that established, let's go back into the book of Isaiah, the 52nd chapter, and again, the first verse. It says, awake, awake, put on thy strength, O Zion, put on thy beautiful garments. Again, these garments right here symbolizes this truth. And there's plenty of scriptures to support that, which the first one I want to get is found right here in the book of Ecclesiasticus, the 6th chapter, and starting at the 27th verse. It says, search and seek, and she shall be made known unto thee. And that she right here is concerning wisdom, right? It says, and when thou hast got hold of her, let her not go, right? This is of importance, man, to hold fast to this understanding that you have been exposed to. Why? Because it's going to serve as a hedge of protection, a covering. See? Verse 28, for at the last thou shalt find her rest, and that shall be turned to thy joy. Then shall her fetters be a strong defense for thee. See? Again, this truth is going to serve as a covering, a protection, right? And we read in the book of Ezekiel, the 9th chapter, how the Lord has a day reserved where he's going to send forth those death angels, man. Okay? And only those who are marked with that mark of exemption, right? Or that garment, that covering, that certain uniform, to distinguish them from those whom they're going to go after and utterly smite. See? It says, then shall her feathers be a strong defense for thee, and her chains a robe, see, a robe of glory, for there is a golden ornament upon her, and her bands are purple lace. Thou shalt put her on as a robe of honor, see? Thou shalt put her on as a robe of honor, man. Proving that these garments that you read about in Isaiah the 52nd chapter, and plenty other scriptures, you know, Revelation the 19th chapter, right? It symbolizes this truth, man. We have put on this truth, you know? Matter of fact, I'm going to go back there, but we have another quick precept found in the book of Baruch, the 5th chapter. Starting at the 1st verse, it says, put off, Jerusalem, the garment of mourning and affliction. Yeah, meaning whatever doctrine that you was into, it actually contributed to your affliction, man. It kept you in further derision. It kept you oppressed. You got to remember, the Lord, Yahushua, made the statement, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. All right? So any other doctrine oppresses you. It afflicts you. Again, it says, put off Jerusalem, meaning take off those old garments we had on, whatever doctrine that we subscribed to before we was exposed to this truth, right? It says, put off Jerusalem the garment of mourning and affliction, see? And put on the comeliness of the glory that cometh from Yahweh forever. See that? And that's dealing with this knowledge, this truth, which this truth endures forever. Matter of fact, let me get something real quick. We're going to go back there as well. This is the book of Psalms, the 100th chapter, all right? And I started the 3rd verse. It says, know ye that the Lord, he is power. It is he that have made us and not ourselves. Right, the Lord designed us to understand his truth. We have nothing that we can boast in, all right? If we are to boast, we have to boast that we know and understand Yahweh Bashim Yahushua, which he designed us to do so, right? The Lord created you and designed you with a certain makeup where you'll be able to digest this truth once it was presented to you, see? Know ye that the Lord, he is power. It is he that have made us and not we ourselves. We are his people and the sheep of his pasture. Yeah, that pasture symbolizes this truth, right? Enter into his gates with thanksgiving. Yeah, you have to constantly thank the Lord for him allowing you to approach him, man. Who can approach the throne of Yahweh Bashim Yahushua least invited, man? See? Enter into his gates with thanksgiving and into his courts with praise. Be thankful, see? Be thankful unto him and bless his name. Be thankful for what? Because he gave us this truth, which is going to be the bridge to our salvation. He gave us those garments to cover our shame and our nakedness, right? And also to be as a protector, a hedge of protection, right? Verse 5, for the Lord is good, his mercy is everlasting, and his truth, see, and his truth endureth to all generations. You see that? So that's why when you go back here to the book of Baruch, the 5th chapter and the 1st verse again, put off, O Jerusalem, the garment of mourning and affliction, and put on the comeliness, see, of the glory that cometh from Yahweh Bashim Yahushua forever. See? So this truth endured forever through generation to generation to generation, man. That's why here in the latter days, we was exposed to this truth once again, right? Verse 2, it says, cast about thee a double garment. See? Cast about thee a double garment. Yeah, you should put on this truth, you know, much as you can. All right? Because why? This is going to be a protection from the wind and the storm. You go out while it's raining and storm. You just don't put on a t-shirt. You want to secure yourself by putting on a double garment, right? It says, cast about thee a double garment of the righteousness which cometh from the Most High, right, this truth, and set a diadem of thine head of the glory of the everlasting, for the Most High will show thy brightness. See, what's this brightness? This truth. So you see what this word garment is in the same breath with brightness. Why? Because it's pretty much interchangeable. You know, it complements one another, man. Proving again that this garment it symbolizes this truth, right? It says, for the Most High will show thy brightness, see, unto every country under heaven. And that's where the internet come in. So the Lord used this internet, the YouTube in particular, to show his brightness. Let's read this again. For the Most High will show thy brightness unto every country under heaven. See that? So when you go back here to the book of Ecclesiasticus, the 6th chapter, and again, the 31st verse, it says, thou shalt put her on, see, and it's her again, is wisdom. Thou shalt put her on as a robe of honor, see, and shall put her about thee as a crown of joy, see, and that's dealing with this understanding, this wisdom. This is what brings us joy, man, this truth, man. Can you imagine if this truth was taken from you? I mean, I know me, myself, I wouldn't be able to live with that, man, understanding the ramifications of having this truth, of having this truth, right? Verse 32, it says, my son, if thou wilt, thou shalt be taught. And that proves that this she right here is dealing with wisdom. And that's the very essence of this setting right here, this ministry. You know, it's centered around the dynamic of teacher and student. And this is how you gain wisdom. And this is how you're going to be covered. See, my son, if thou wilt, thou shalt be taught. And if thou wilt apply thy mind, thou shalt be prudent. If thou love to hear, see, thou shalt receive understanding. If thou bow down thou ear, thou shalt be wise. Yeah, what does it mean to bow down thine ear? That means to humble yourself to the poor. We would be considered the poor, right? Because we don't have strength in our hand. Poor doesn't always necessarily translate to not having money, man. Right? That's more of the modern way of framing the poor. The poor simply means you have no strength. You're poor, you're weak. We don't have strength in our hands. See? Verse 34, stand in the multitude of the elders and cleave unto him that is wise. Yeah, how do you stand in the multitude of the elders? These different live streams, these different epistles in the form of these videos during the week, when we go out on the highways and byways. If you partake in that hearing, that's a form of you standing in the multitude of the elders. See, stand in the multitude of the elders and cleave unto him that is wise. Be willing to hear every godly discourse. Yeah, meaning, you know, you don't just watch the videos centered around controversy. You know, you have Jake that's out there that just want to be entertained. They're not willing to hear every godly discourse. You know, a brother might go into a video dealing with history, you know, maybe a more tedious lesson, if you will. And Jake, you know, having a short attention span, they don't want to watch that video or a video breaking down the Hebrew or what have you. But if you upload a video, you know, a guy falls down 30 flights of steps or some crazy shit, Jake all over it, right? But you have to be willing to hear every godly discourse. Again, it says, be willing to hear every godly discourse and let not the parables of understanding escape thee. See? Verse 36, and if thou seest a man of understanding, right, if you had a discernment, you know, you watch these different videos and you find a certain brother that has understanding, mainly these men are on display here at Great Millstone, right? It says, and if thou seest a man of understanding, get thee betimes unto him, and let thy foot wear the steps of his door. Let thy mind be upon the ordinance of the Lord, and meditate continually in his commandments. He shall establish thine heart and give thee wisdom at thine own desire, right? So this thing is all centered around wisdom. Why is getting this understanding, getting this wisdom, this truth, it's emphasized, you know? It's because it's going to serve as a protection. It's going to serve as a covering, man, all right? In the day when all hell break loose. This truth is going to cover you. It's going to be that hedge of protection. See? So yeah, I just want to touch on that, Lord willing. It was edifying. To the next time I say shalom.